The delegate from Bedford, Delegate Byron.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise for a point of personal privilege.
The delegate has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, as we've heard in this chamber this morning, there was a women's march this weekend. And you may have seen the photo in the news of our new governor joining the women who marched, showing his solidarity by wearing one of the knitted pink hats that have come to define the Women's March movement. It should come as no surprise to those of you in this chamber that I was not among the marchers. But considering what they were marching for, I'm glad I was not. You see, Mr. Speaker, the Women's March is not for all women, but only for those who share the unity principles of the movement. If you are a woman who believes that a minor child should not receive an abortion without the consent of a parent, you are not invited to the Women's March. If you are a woman who believes abortion should not be permitted for gender selection, you are not invited to the Women's March. If you are a woman who believes that abortion clinics should be required to observe established medical standards to ensure the health and safety of their patients, you're not invited to the Women's March. If you are a woman who believes that the little sister of the poor should not be forced to pay for birth control, you are not invited to the Women's March. If you are a woman who believes that traditional marriage is a foundation of Western civilization and our society, you are not invited to the Women's March. If you are a woman who believes that those who enter our nation illegally should not be allowed to cut in line in front of those who follow the rules, you are not invited to the Women's March. Simply put, Mr. Speaker, the Women's March is not universal, but exclusive. Essentially, it is reserved for the 54% of American women who voted for Hillary Clinton in 2016. Well, what about the other 46% of American women, women like myself? Don't they have genuine and valid concerns about the future of our nation, too? They believe that government should not burden businesses with regulations that stifle our economy and discourage entrepreneurship. They believe that the federal government's takeover of health care has led to skyrocketing insurance premiums and outrageous deductibles, putting the health and pocketbook of our families at risk. They believe that doubling the national debt in 8 years has placed an outrageous burden on their children and grandchildren. They believe that the recently passed tax reform will provide genuine relief from the crippling tax rates and higher health insurance costs of the Obama years. They believe that our Constitution, including the Second Amendment, should be respected. And I can assure you, Mr. Speaker, they'd never disrespect our flag, our nation, or the memory of the men and women who gave their lives for our freedom by protesting our national anthem. Those are the women who weren't marching this weekend. They were not invited. But their voices are no less important because they don't have a knitted pink cap in their wardrobe. Those women matter just as much as those who marched. Their views deserve no less respect simply because they hold and adhere to a different set of principles. I'm proud to be among their ranks and to adhere to the principles and values that have made our nation great. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The delegate from Frederick, Delegate Collins.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise for a point of personal preference, please.
Delegate has the floor.
Ladies and gentlemen, as we celebrate on the other side of the aisle the 45th year of Roe v. Wade, in 2 months I will celebrate the 47th year of my birth, the 47th year of my adoption. I will celebrate the 47th year with my parents. My son will celebrate my 47th year. My wife will celebrate my 47th year. Can we please stop the rhetoric? I was born 2 years prior to Roe v. Wade and adopted through the Catholic Charities. I don't know where I would have been, don't know what would have happened. I've never met my birth mother or my birth father. But I am 47 years old, and thank God every day that I look in the mirror, and I'm sure my mother, my father, my two sisters, my son, my wife, and those are my friends, are thankful that I'm here too. Thank you.